He had three wishes: fast when it comes, only family, and then one other thing, and it all came true. So that's the we're really sad about it, but it's good to know. He was always super active, and it was his biggest fear. So.
Well, it's going to bring you close. I mean, you got to figure out what's going to be the financial.
Yeah, well, probably Callista wants to go this summer, so she's gonna stay a little bit longer, and then my mom can come over and.
Will your mom fly by herself?
Oh yeah. She actually, as a couple, they said no, it's too far. We don't want to do it. There's a house. We can't really leave the house and stuff like that. But I think she is now. She didn't really say no right away. Together, they always said no, we're not coming again.
Happy they have friends or like.
Yeah.
Like my parents, they never came together.
Yeah.
When my father passed away, they went home.
Yeah. 76. My dad just turned 80. So it's really not that of an age, but.
My dad passed away just before he turned 80.
And a funny thing, he always said, I have genes to get to 80. He always said that. You know?
It's almost like he willed himself, like as he manifested. Yeah, that's manifested.
But it was in the same family. Shoulders good. Shoulders. I showed David. Like, I can do this.
They're not allowed.
I seriously did. My turn was I was on.
You never know how to work those.
So it probably doesn't really work.
I think we're ready to start. Going to be busy here. It's 6:47. We're going to start the Finance Committee meeting for this lovely Tuesday, March 20th, the day before the Easter storm. Another. But welcome to everybody. Appreciate it. Appreciate the taking the time. Come and discuss the operating budget pieces of it, as well as on the team here to talk about our draft sections of the letter to the citizens of the town of North Andover, which will be working over the next few weeks. We are going to have first up the bat the community development under Eric and Kaveri, and appreciate again your time, and we're going to get through this. I just want to preface your visit here by the words that Andrew wrote. Challenges addressed in the fiscal year 2019 budget to promote economic development, asset improvement, and maintenance. And the town manager's budget includes funding to create a vision and related action steps to improve the economic viability of the Main Street corridor. Additionally, the town will be working with Merrimack College and private developers to create campus edge zoning to take advantage of the economic benefits of being home to a growing college. Our practice that started several years ago to invest in pay-as-you-go capital project has nothing to do with you, Eric.
What page is that on?
Oh, that was just a preface in 17, but we're actually now starting an Eric section on page 141. So, Eric, the way I've been asking the presenters is basically talk about your department, your responsibility, talk about the accomplishments you had in the prior year and what your plan is for the future year. And we'll talk about numbers. That'd be page 141.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a free-for-all. Thank you, Tim. Everyone, it's good to be back again. Before I start, let me just recognize, so I have two of the department heads here, Brian LaGrasse from Health Department Director, and Donald Belanger is the Inspector of Buildings. So
Okay.
For the Building
Welcome.
Department. Apologize, Jean Enright is actually at a planning board meeting, which I'll be heading to shortly. She's there, and Jen Hughes is out on vacation, so a little scheduling conflict there. So again, real brief, Community and Economic Development Division has those four departments: building, health, conservation, planning, zoning boards of appeals is listed in your book. It's not really a department, but and then the Stevens Estate. I would say, and I'll try and keep it general in terms of the whole division, and I think we're all working on the same page, which is to make our processes easier for the public, more user-friendly, and then to take a more proactive approach in terms of our individual, I guess, areas. And of course, my area being community and economic development. I think a big thing was, and we had started prior fiscal year with some pilots on online permitting with the plumbing and the electrical. But now building department is pretty much fully loaded on the online permitting. It's been an extremely successful program. So much so, I know the clerk's office has also, I think, put a few things online, and we're trying to do even more. Health, we are set up to put all the health permits and approvals online. We've gone through it. There's just a little issue on accounting, and we're working with our contractor on that. So that should happen pretty soon. And I think at that point, we'll be fully engaged with online permitting. And I think that's made it easier, again, for the public, but also for contractors.
People using it?
Very much so. And it's also been great in that it has our departments talking to each other easier. Just so you know, the system sets up, if someone pulls a building permit, it goes to the building inspectors first, and they will release it, and then it shoots to basically all the departments in town, from accounting, from tax collector and police, fire, I think police, but certainly fire, clerk, everyone, and they sign off on things.
Is it all digital signatures?
Yeah, well, what happens is they'll release it, and you'll see, I can track it, anyone can really track it, and for instance, if Conservation approves it, it'll say Jen Hughes, and approved. An email will go to the applicant saying that it's cleared Conservation, and then it works its way through so that the building inspector will not issue the final approval until we have sign off on everyone. That's actually, I think, in terms of fiscal responsibility, Lynn, like this, there's been a couple instances where, if there's money owed to the town on that property, and we'll say, hey, wait a minute, you owe some money, we're not necessarily going to give you a permit, come on in and figure that out. And it's actually been a pretty good tool for us to bring in that revenue. And a lot of communities do that. The system's just set up that it's a lot smoother. So again, we will be doing, health has a lot too, right? Annual dumpster permits. Brian will tell you whether it's the food permits, and the restaurants and annual. Also, I would assume a septic on there as well. So if you start that process.
Does that mean that a person who submits a permit can see how it's moving through the track of a different sig?
Yep, they can. So you would set up anyone here. You could set up an account, and then you track your permit, and you could which is great because then you can reach out and send an email. Hey, Conservation, what's the holdup? Or whatever, and you'll get a response. And again, you'll see a lot of questions go back, just confirming is this such and such, and something will come back, and it's all there. Everyone can see it.
Yeah.
Do you feel the workflow process is improved as far as the time goes, the timeline between beginning to end?
We were pretty good on time. I think overall, yes, because if anything dragged, it would have been, or we missed in order to meet time, or we missed engaging, frankly, another department, and we might have missed an issue. Hey, wait a minute, that was supposed to come to me, And so it's considering that we're catching things a lot better. It's still moving pretty fast. Yeah. In line with that, we're close to having all of our what we call property files. So it's pretty much every file for my address, every address, every building permit that's been pulled. So in that file is actually the building files, the health files, We do not keep necessarily planning files or conservation. They're separate files. You might have some conservation in it, but for instance, everything that's happened at Royal Crest, everything that's happened at your house, if it's in a file, that's gone out for scanning. We had started to scan them. Pretty intensive amount of documents. So we sent them out for scanning. They should be about done. So relatively soon, all that will be online as well. So that will, if someone's trying to buy a house, right, we always get inquiries, they can go online, see the history of what happened at that house. When was it? Oh, there was a roof done in 2010. So all that will be online. The clerk's office, I believe, have a lot of files online. It'll be intuitive to a property. You can run a property and almost see every file the town has, pretty much. So I think that's a great step forward. Again, making life easier and providing what are public documents out to the public for review.
So you have, as far as the permitting processes, everything but the health right now up and live.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the historical documents, you're currently in the process of scanning them and getting them as part of the electronic records.
Correct. Some of them are already on there, but it was really dragging, and so, yeah. Everything will be on, you won't have conservation, a lot of their big files. That's another big amount of documents to try and scan. But certainly, again, anything, for instance, you pulled a building permit to redo your kitchen. That's going to be in your file. There's a file on that. Everything we have now will be online.
Okay.
I have a question. If a contractor applies for a permit, then for a residence or for business, can the business owner go and check if there are any issues or complaints against that particular contractor with the town?
No, no, we're not like, I think if, so I will say this, if a contractor's pulling a permit, one of the questions is, give me your license numbers. Do you have a valid, certainly if you're a plumber, your license number, your electrician's number, and the builders have their numbers. We don't necessarily, I think, track, complaints about, yeah. I think the state would do that, and if you wanted to check on a contractor, you would go to the
Don't
state.
they have to buy a bond or something, like $10,000 or something, in order to work at some place?
No.
That's done at the
Okay.
state level.
Yeah.
Through
Okay.
licensing bureaus.
They have insurance,
Yeah.
we ask for their insurance and everything else, and
Yeah,
so that's
right.
all part on there, and you can see what they answer.
But their licensing is handled by the state, not the
Okay.
locality.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I did, yeah, I'm sorry.
How do we compare to other towns? Are we,
In terms of online,
yes, are we catching up? Are we just?
I don't think this is, I'm trying to not brag too much. I don't think there's a town that has as comprehensive a online presence as us, or a more comprehensive presence.
If I
Yep.
just comment one thing on that?
Yeah, do you want to go up to the mic,
Yes.
if you don't mind?
Okay, my name is Donald Belanger, I'm Inspector of Buildings, and a comment, I deal with inspectors across the Commonwealth, and they're actually coming up and asking questions about the system we have because it's functioning well. And a lot of contractors are happy with it, and they're getting a response across the Commonwealth, which has been a very successful program.
When did this go online versus it was a manual process, I think, when I did work at my house?
So, building went online, I want to say last April or so. Might have been May. Plumbing and electrical went on the year before, not quite a year before.
Is this a commercial software product that you're implementing, or is this something designed in-house?
No, the name of the product is Viewpoint.
Okay.
Viewpoint, you said?
Viewpoint.
Viewpoint.
Yeah. So I think Andover uses Viewpoint. I believe Andover was online before us. I just don't think they had, frankly, they might have had the roofing permit or something, but I don't know that they had the actual building permit, which is probably the most
It's a
involved
multi-step
thing.
process.
Yeah.
That's, you guys are building out processes and workflow in it. That's excellent.
So, but, I mean, you're seeing far more communities doing it, but,
Is there an e-commerce aspect where, like, if you get a fishing license, you gotta pay online and?
so they
Is that
pay online.
working well, the
Yeah.
processing of payments?
Once the permit is approved, then they're told you know, pay this amount. They can pay by credit card, or come down and pay in cash. I think most people do pay in credit card. There's that percentage fee on it. I'll be honest with you, there is a option that's offered to pay by check. I don't think, but it's like a $5 charge, and it's not something, I think that's high. And we've been reluctant to make that an option right now, because trying to justify that much to do a kind of, you know, a transfer from a checking account, where other places I think are charging 50 cents or, you know, something a lot more reasonable.
I
And for
use the
most
system
people-
for something and it works really nicely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Glad you guys like it too.
It's very successful.
It's very important. You're cramming in so
It was
many
put
different
together.
appointments and, you know what I mean? This makes it flow.
So then, let me see, so in terms of, you know, beyond doing the regular amount of work, which is pretty heavy, the thousands of inspections and applications that, you know, we deal with on a given day, planning dealing with a lot of seemingly pretty involved you know, applications before the planning board. Certainly, we've spent a lot of time working on the Osgood project this year. That took a lot of effort. And health, conservation, let me do a caveat here. Conservation's application is actually through the state for the most part, so that's been online. So we don't really do conservation online because it really goes through the state. But, you know, the orders of, the notices of intent and everything get filed that way. So in addition to all that, I think there's been collectively an attempt to try and be more proactive in terms of what we each do. And you'll see that going forward, if I can tie in a little bit, maybe the goals for next year. For instance, health, under Brian's team, have really tried to step up that kind of public education on pertinent health issues, and the Board of Health is stepping up on that with kind of a speaking part of their meetings where they bring people in to speak on, I guess, issues of the day. A good one of my favorite ones is coming up, I think, and this came from the town nurse, Caroline Ibbotson. This would be working with the youth services on a running program for really young. I mean, we're talking, Brian, I apologize, but 3 to 8. You know, and this is a successful program she'd run across, and I think we're going to do it a little more in-house, but through Rick Gorman's programs. Mm-hmm. We're excited about that. So, you know, when you see health trying to reach out about vaccines and really engaging more with the public, this is something I know I've been trying to do, and as well as the town manager and Brian since he's been here, and the whole department. Building, theirs is a little different, right? But they work mostly with contractors, and the state's unraveling the 9th edition of the code, and that's, you know, a lot of education going back and forth because things change. And hey, I used to be able to do that well under this code. So Donald's trying to take a lead on putting some materials together to help, you know, make that go smoother. I'll go to planning last. Conservation, again, more education. Eventually, we're going to have to do this NIPD's permit program that every year, I think maybe you've been somewhat aware of it. EPA has ruled on something, but they keep delaying it, so the state said let us do it, and there's something now going back and forth. we're not caught in the middle, but we're waiting for it, and Jen's certainly prepared. She does a lot on the river, the lake cleanup, and I think she wants to do more markings and more updating on some of the open fields and the haying and that goes on and all that. That falls under Jen and the Conservation Commission. Planning, which I probably work the closest with, we've been heavily engaged in the master plan process. On top of that, it's a housing production plan. These are things that the state requires, at least the master plan is a requirement. We're working with the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission on the housing production plan. If we do this, that helps us with having a plan that the state can say, okay, your 40Bs or your affordable housing programs, there's a plan that we like, we accept, and if someone wants to come in, it really has to fit that plan. We used to have one expired a few years back, I think in 2012. So we're getting that back, but through at no cost to us, frankly, through the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, and we're coordinating that with the master plan. But we're really focused on, I think, getting geared up to implement the master plan. We're certainly well aware of the big issues that have come through that process, and we're gearing up for that. We're on the home stretch of the master plan. We just had our last public forum last week. It was Jen was there. It was very, very engaged people that showed up. Our first public forum, I got to tell you, the town was great. They came up in big numbers, much more than the consultants thought, and what are normal for towns. I would say almost 3 to 4 times as much as they normally see. And so the process has been pretty involved. We have a master plan advisory committee. The members have been outstanding in terms of shepherding that and making sure the public's been engaged, and that the feedback is respected and is being kind of carried through on the master plan. Again, that's a plan that is under the planning board, and the planning board put this committee in place to help it. So the planning board is engaged as well as the board of selectmen. Ultimately, it's through the planning board.
I just have a question, if you don't mind. Under prior year accomplishments, in the budget book, it mentions a final 5-year housing plan was presented to the planning board for approval, and you kind of spoke about that before you transitioned into master plan. Is that the same thing, and is that what you're talking about when you say that that's going to be part of the master planning process, or is that something that's already been kind of created and has decided that plan will be implemented as part of that process, or is it still in the works?
So is this under
page 141 under prior year's accomplishments? 1, 2, 3 bullets down, last
I can give you
sentence.
my copy if you want.
Yes, that's exactly the one.
Yeah, is that what you're referring to?
Yep,
Okay.
I am. And so, again, we're actually lucky that one of the consultants that was brought on by the Planning Commission is one of the consultants we have on, that's doing that is one of our consultants for our master plan. So, but we have made sure they coordinated, and, we can't have 2 documents saying 2 different things, right? Both of those are nearing their completion. The housing production plan took longer than expected. I think, and understandably, it was a big undertaking for the Regional Planning Commission, 15 communities, and we're one chapter in that.
Okay.
So, and the state, that's something that the state approves, and the state agreed that if we did it this way, that would qualify as North Andover's housing production plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, one other question. Under kind of, and I might be moving ahead, so if so, just stop me and say you'll get to it. But under your fiscal year 19 goals, the last bullet on page 142 talks about your strategies to revitalize the downtown area, specifically about connectivity, infrastructure, land use. Is this, and kind of the goal is to have this information by June 30, 2019. Is that also part of the master plan process? Like, how are you going to achieve that by that date? So I'm just trying to get an understanding of where that fits in.
Right. So on the heels of the master plan, so the master plan should be done, let's say, at the end of this fiscal year.
Okay.
Certainly before that. And then part of what they will produce for us is an implementation plan, so that if we follow that plan, which I'm hopefully diligently going to insist upon, it won't be one of those plans that just goes on a shelf and collects dust, right? And so it is one of the things that's come out of the master plan, not surprising to us, is the community's desire for a downtown, an area of, where people can go, walk, eat, culture, shop, certain, that kind of downtown, I think, that we all envision. So that, along with a few other things, the consultants have said, look, we want to take, so we know that's really high up on people's list, like connectivity. That was another one that we've heard people want to walk and ride and be able to connect between that downtown or, if you're out country, frankly, they would like little things that they can connect to too. We're going to take what we're calling deep dives, for lack of a better term, one of which is the downtown. And so let's look at our downtown district. What zoning changes? Do we grow that district? How do we make connectivity between getting to it, but not only to it, through it, or within it? So what I anticipate is for this is to put probably some zoning changes or grow the downtown overlay district. Maybe actually make that, instead of an overlay, the actual zoning for downtown, right? That's one thing. We're trying to simplify our zoning. So that's something that will also come on for next year. And I think you'll see that in the goals for planning and for my office. And then it's working on, what infrastructure needs do we need to do? Is there a facade program? What would be the return on that? What sidewalks maybe do we need to redo, and do we do pocket parks? So it's really kind of the elements that are missing from our downtown to help promote what people want, and trying to figure that out and getting that in place.
Will that be, when you talk about the going from the strategy to the implementation plan, the implementation plan is the goal that there'll be some things on the 2019 town meeting where we'll be voting on zoning and others. Is that kind of like the timeline thought?
Yes, so exactly. I think you'll see some, let's call them pretty substantive proposals about our zoning for annual town meeting of May of 19.
That's
Yep.
right, okay.
I have a question. Since we are talking about community development, growth of new housing units, revitalization of the downtown, and creating job opportunities by encouraging businesses, have you thought upon the transportation part? And has the town done any kind of survey to find out from where do these people come to these businesses, or where do the residents generally go for their jobs? And it's important to see in future how we can, with all these growths, we do not congest our town.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the thought on transportation?
So transportation is another big issue. That's part of a master plan. So it's one of the, I think, 7 required elements
Yeah.
Of a master plan. And yes, so that's another thing that, taking a bit of a deeper dive, I can say on the public forums, I think the guys in charge of the transportation boards were bragging how they were the busiest ones. We do look, and we've worked with the Planning Commission as well on certain kind of traffic patterns or studies. I think when we're talking transportation, it's the overlap, right? It's also connectivity. It's sidewalks, it's bikes, it's trails. That also, trails also goes to open space, and so they really, kind of hinge off each other or carry over into each other. But yes, transportation is a critical issue, and we only have limited resources in certain things about sidewalks and all that. So how do we prioritize the right way?
I want to say this, that your goals for 19, I like if you actually read them. You have a mix of revenue generating as well as expense. It's a really, I'm very impressed by it. I'll speak for myself on this one. We're talking about reaching out to the employers and developers and commercial taxpayers and so forth. So that's deliberate, I presume, right? That there's this mix between, we're going to be going into a season of changes and so forth in 19 and needing to pay for that? Is that?
Well, it's
Or
reaching out to
suggested
people
changes.
and
Yeah.
what are we missing? What would get you if you're a regional developer? How can I get you in town? And when you look at North Andover, what do you see, right? It's important to talk to our existing businesses as well. What do you see as what we lack, or what do we do right? And then it's informing them of the things that are happening. I think you're going to see there's some plans for Route 114. Significant improvements, transportation you're talking. The state has targeted 114, and they're starting with the section between Waverly and Mill Street. So right past Stop and Shop. Where I think you'll see it'll be 2 lanes each direction, there'll be more turn lanes, you'll see sidewalks, basically, I believe, both sides of that whole stretch. So if you're along 114, and I think and I'm glad you mentioned and I think it's one of the goals, right? The working with the college. Yeah. And the kind of a campus edge to the college. We have certainly an extremely large parcel across the street from the college. Try and engage with them. And that would be Royal Crest property, right? Is there a way to bolster our economic base, bolster the college, and certainly maintain the housing elements that are important. I mean, let me go back to housing a little bit. Like anywhere in the Commonwealth, we have an issue with housing that we need to address. And it's the type of housing units, and I know this is a really kind of polarizing conversation in town. We'll see that most likely the future of our housing is multifamily, and I don't want to say that necessarily across that it's a big apartment buildings. That could be townhouses, that could be really small or targeted developments. But the future isn't large subdivisions of single-family homes. It just isn't. We don't have those tracts of land now, necessarily. And then the housing needs, we're an older population. We're finding that we're having more single-person households. One of the things we hear all the time, my kids coming home from college, they can't afford to live here. I've lived here, 40 years, and I want to downsize, but I can't afford to find a place. I can't find a place that I can afford to stay in town. And, it's not necessarily something that's just facing North Andover faces. Most communities do. How do we address that? So that's where, this master plan is raising these big questions. It's just, been a great process. So as you develop up 114, I think one of the consultants said when they looked at 114, they see a road that doesn't know what it wants to be. And so how do we make that cohesive, right? It starts off heavily commercial, retail, very successful, I think, developments. Goes into this kind of weird little blend of some houses in the middle, and it pinches down, and it's got some constraints by wetlands and other things, and then it opens up again, and it becomes, well, you got multifamily complexes here, and in the middle these kind of office buildings. So we're trying to figure that out and plan that out, and we think, one of the things, and I might have referenced it the last time I was before this committee, we only have so much land right now that's zoned for commercial development, and it's not as much as people think. So when everyone says, just keep growing business, some of the question is, well, where? Mm-hmm. Right? Because some of those areas are also constrained. We see different, we think zoning changes and more cohesive and comprehensive zoning, where it's consistent. Will help on going up Sutton Street to 125 and that whole corridor. Same thing with 114. There might be a couple different districts, but we're just trying to be smarter about it.
I have a question.
Hmm?
I want to mirror what Jen says about the FY19 goals. I think they're ambitious and a nice mix. My question would be, though, looking at your staffing,
I know.
you're a regular one-armed paper hanger.
I was going to ask you, and I didn't.
You know, I look, and back in 2006, you had an assistant director.
1.07.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, 2016, you had an assistant director, you're down that position, so you're at 1.7 positions. Do some of the town boards chip in with you and help with these things? I mean, how is this going to get accomplished? And not to disparage your abilities, but I mean, there's only so many hours in one day for a person. This is a lot of stuff for 1.7 people to handle.
Right, it's totally a team effort. One thing we did, so while my number went down, planning went up, right? So we bolstered,
So it's a shift.
yes, so we bolstered the planning department to have a staff planner. And again, this isn't necessarily me doing it, right? It's the division doing it. So it is everyone working together. And frankly, you know, community and economic development isn't just about finding a business or whatever, right? Businesses come to a place that is a place where people want to live. Well, that means a place that's, one, well-run. It's a place that has great schools, a place that has, safe streets and so on and so forth, and streets that are clean and trash that is picked up. It just goes on and on.
Yeah.
Working with Lynn's office, people wouldn't see the nuances that happen. I work well with DPW. DPW's been great, and they're a huge part of this as well. We've just had a meeting at the mills on some issues. So that wasn't, it's not me trying to figure it out, but it's sitting with DPW to do that. So
you feel like you have the resources?
I do.
to accomplish
And let me
this.
just say also, a lot of these goals, we're working with the town manager. So Andrew and I have what I think is a very close and productive relationship, and we're pretty much on the same page, right? But we always get on the same page, which is important. And so a lot of this was, with feedback from his office. His office is a critical element. What you guys do, what the Board of Selectmen do, they're all ambassadors and everything, The fact that we're AAA, that means a lot. So, it makes my job easier if I go to talk to someone.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks for asking.
I have I think all of us have the same thing.
I know.
Whoa. I do have an economic type question. I don't know if there's a good answer here or at the response right now, but relative to incentivizing some of our commercial areas to grow, and when you talked about the development of downtown, I've been here 20 years as well, and it really hasn't changed a whole heck of a lot. I also came from communities where, in the Midwest, where they use tax incremental financing to help incentivize commercial owners to actually enhance and improve their properties. A little bit of teamwork between the town and the commercial owner, but it's an incentive. Have we thought of anything like that relative to?
So under Massachusetts, we do have tax increment financing, TIF. We have district DIF. Here, DIF is what every other state calls TIF, and our TIF is different. Now I got to get them right. One is, and I think that's DIF. If a company invests money in a project, and that money then generates, say, 50 or 100,000 in new taxes, right? Because the property value went up and all that. We agreed to take that, say, 100,000 and invest it as a town back in infrastructure that supports that development, right? So that's more of a DIF. A TIF here is, and we do have it, I believe 1600 Osgood may still have one. They haven't been able to utilize it. But what we then do is, you'll see that it's common. It's part of the Amazon stuff when people are saying, do you be careful what you give Amazon. And a lot of people will give So what they'll say is on the taxes that's generated, we're going to forgive 100% the first 2 years, and then, over a 20-year program. So that's just letting them keep the money. And actually, that's what might be diff here. And the other one is, no, we take the money, but we agree that we're going to use that money for instance, if it's downtown, we would do sidewalks or whatever, in terms of improving something in that district. Then there's business investment improvement districts and other things. We do have them. We haven't done a TIF in a while, frankly.
I'm just thinking about. I'm just thinking of ways that we can then attract the right person to develop the downtown.
Yeah, we're thinking potentially a facade program as well.
Okay.
We're trying to find models that work better than others, and that's kind of been pushed on the back burner, unfortunately, and now it'll come back in terms of, because we're coming up with that overall strategy for the downtown.
I'm sure someone has analyzed what kind of businesses the town should attract.
Yep.
You really have to look at this master plan that they're working on. I mean, honestly, I think it'll answer all your questions and more.
Appreciate it. It is online. I mean, it's a good
Yeah,
plug.
it's
What you can
all
see on if you go on the town website and you hit the master plan, you'll see existing conditions report. You'll see the report from the first forum where we actually transcribed all the little sticky notes, and they're kind of a nice read, right? That the nearly 200 people, I think, put down there. And now probably the more important one is the draft vision statement and the goals and objectives, which is really the meat. That's where we are now, and that's what we just talked about. And frankly, you can go online and fill out a survey and let us know what you think of that. But, yeah, it's interesting what people kind of see and want. I can tell you they don't want to see another nail salon downtown. Yeah, they keep coming. I know.
I was just going to ask a more open-ended question. What are a couple of things on your wish list that the town or the townspeople or the local businesses could do to help generate new revenue? I'm thinking about permanent annual recurring tax revenue, not fees.
I think, well, I would like to, I'll be honest with you, and certain properties, I would like to see owners, but we need to work with them maybe better to invest more on some of the downtown properties, for instance, to spruce up the look, and we'll work with them on that. I think that's something where that kind of investment actually does translate into higher revenues for them, and also higher property values, but it brings businesses in, so that would bring, as well, revenue and jobs and everything else in town. Well, again, that might be a facade thing, but just frankly, some of them should just be done. I think we can go down Main Street, right, and you'll see some properties and you say, wow, that one just needs to be stepped up. And when you see an investment like Brad Street, the Brad Street on Main, the new property there, looks great. I have people coming in town all saying, wow, there's some good things going on downtown. And that, they see that. I know the owners of Heavenly Donuts, that kind of change where the facade there has made a difference, and they actually have another property on Main Street that they're going to now work on. I'd like to see more of that, I think, if there was a wish list.
What can we do to encourage that?
You have to, sit down and talk to them and convince them that it's worth the investment, right, and that we're here to help that and help attract businesses for them, tenants for them, so that they would do it. And then I think a facade program does go a long way. But also, I do think we get those, and we are working on it. It's not a short process, but the undergrounding of the wires on Main Street, that will go a huge way. To then it's stands out, and that's what we can do to help encourage it, right?
Is there what does the facade program look like? Well, if you, in a perfect world, I know it's not official, but what would that look like to you?
So I think in a perfect world, how would I have it? You would have someone present certain, you work with the design guidelines. You have a set design guidelines. You have zoning that would allow a building to go up maybe a third level, right, and encourage that. And then you could put some housing units on the top, right, to help generate some revenue. That could be another way we could help them to then invest in the whole building. And it's somewhat like a revolving, here's $20,000. I mean, you say it's 1 for 1, they put in 20, we put in 20, it's a $40,000 facelift to a building, can be pretty substantive. And after some have it, that's totally forgiven after about 5 years of whatever, they can't sell the property, they sell the property, that money comes back to us. You could probably start it off with $300,000-$400,000 in an account, maybe. And we've talked about it. This is not something that, again, the town manager and I and others have sat and talked about. But I think we're going to unravel that as part of, a more comprehensive strategy on the downtown. It may not. I mean, it's it's
Yeah, so, understood.
it's part of that.
You, consultant, professional budget went down 40,000.
Yeah. Well, the master plan is going to end. So that's what that actually reflects, but it also reflects, it's not like, I anticipate that we will bring in a couple other consultants to work on connectivity and planning, potentially some kind of study of the street in terms of creating pocket parks or little places, and what's missing on Main Street. So I do think you'll see it's not like we've wiped it out. We're still going to engage, and part of that funds annually goes to the Planning Commission as well to pay for our. I don't know if assessment is the right word.
Any other questions? No.
You're gonna let him go.
Yeah.
This is me.
Eric.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Yeah. Excellent.
Bye-bye.
Just for the record, I have to leave by 8:30. I'm sorry, I didn't announce it at the beginning.
Fine.
Okay.
We'll do.
Okay.
So next on our agenda is elder services, a very important part of our town, the budget part, as well as the people behind the scenes. And I do welcome Irene and Kathy to help guide us.
In all honesty, I'm not Irene.
No, Irene is not feeling well.
Irene is under the weather, so she has asked me,
Please,
who's
forgive
the
me.
assistant director. My name is Carla Ahlstrom.
Thank you.
And what's the other part of your job?
Oh,
You
the
wait
other
for
part
guests.
is I am the outreach manager as well.
Okay. Again, my apologies.
That's all right, you didn't know.
Okay, no. I should. I apologize.
And I'd also just like to acknowledge the presence of our Council on Aging Board President, Joe Sergi.
Hey, Joe.
Hi.
Hey, welcome. I was wondering who was attending.
I know.
Not too often.
The lone soul. Always want to know who it is.
Absolutely. A very important part. I'm biased as heck because of my my age, but this happens to be one of my favorite parts of the budget talks. So,
Oh, neat.
so tell me about your mission, your accomplishments, and your goals.
Okay.
And tell me that you need much more money, and we'll do what we can.
Page 176, guys.
Okay. So, all right. So, in our prior accomplishments, I would say we have found a few activities that have worked, and so we've focused on expanding them in some form of another, whether it be in terms of adding more meals or whatever the case may be. Then we figure it out from there to determine whether or not that was a good decision or not a good decision. And in most cases, you'll see a lot of what we've been doing, we have been doing for a good couple of years. And if it isn't broken, don't fix it, right?
Sure. Now, one of the interests I have, by the way, is obviously, do you have enough support And the other part is just trends. Because I'm always
Yes.
looking forward, saying, okay, I think there's a baby boom population that's
Oh,
going to start hitting you, and are you ready for it? And what it might mean to the town. So,
Sure. We all know that the boomer population is growing, and it's going up and up and up. So many people are turning 60, and that is kind of our age that we service. We certainly offer activities to people younger than that, whether it be a Zumba program or another type of exercise, but to actually receive services in the way of counseling or services through, a healthcare provider or something like that, then we do require that the resident be 60 years of age. It's interesting, Kathy and I were talking earlier, is we still have quite a bit of the greatest generation walking through our doors, and then, so programming for them is a little bit different than what you might consider the younger senior, who has lived a little different lifestyle than possibly their parents, in terms of staying, physically active and working longer. They're in the workforce until well into their late 60s, even 70s, because they want to be. Also, economically, they need to be. And then, so that programming is slowly changing for our facility, but we're very aware that it needs to change. One of the things we did try to do this spring is open up the senior center to an activity on a Saturday. Seniors have been communicating to us, it's a long weekend when you close the doors on Friday and don't open up again on Monday. So, and that's going to be hit or miss for a while until we find out what programs actually work. I do find the younger senior isn't walking through the door just yet. We don't identify, and I could say we because I am 60. We don't identify with being a senior. We're a little bit more accepting of the word boomer, but we still see ourselves as kayakers and physically active. We've got grandchildren. We might be offering up daycare for our own children. We might even have a parent still living. So there's those sandwich generation responsibilities that doesn't actually put the senior in our facility, in our doors. But the time will come where they won't necessarily be able to afford that gym membership and some of those other luxuries or, extra income items. And so then you will find, and I'm hearing this through those that are in their 70s, well, now I am retired. I'm working off a small pension and my Social Security. So I really appreciate when the Senior Center can offer an exercise program taught by somebody who's trained and professional for $4 a class. Now that's rock
That's a
cheap.
bargain, right.
That's right. So we're hoping that eventually in time, and we're kind of looking at that 10-year period where we're going to see, hopefully with the expected building of a new senior center, that we can arrange the interior of it and the exterior of it to accommodate the excitement of a newer senior. So.
will your team, the board, be active in the planning of the senior center?
Well, we better be.
Yeah, as you said, I haven't been asked, and that would be a problem, but no, that's great. The only question I had on that is, it's down by the KFC, whereas you're so used to,
Yes, and
is that an issue or a problem?
well, it's kind of interesting. I've been with the senior center since 2011, and
Knights of
Columbus.
Columbus behind
Yes,
you.
yes.
China Blossom.
yeah, China Blossom.
No, not KFC, no, KFC, I'm sorry.
And I've grown to observe, especially because my roles have changed within my employment at the senior center, that the communities that, or the housing communities that are located downtown, they're not coming out. They might use our services to go to the grocery store, but they're not necessarily attending programs. So what we have decided to do, and this is through myself as the outreach manager in our friendly visitor program, is to bring programs to them. So to me, that's not going to necessarily be an issue, but what might be an issue is for those that do like to come to the senior center and do come from, and most of them are from inside the city, town versus out country, so to speak. We do have access to 2 vans. And so right now, yes, we only have that 1 van driver, but we do have a, what's the word called?
Vendor?
Vendor, thank
Vendor
you.
driver.
A vendor driver that we've used. And we've also had the tax work-off program. And so people have stepped in to earn some of their volunteer hours by being a van driver. And at this time, the van driver gets used for a special trip to like the PBDSX Museum or a supper club that we sponsor monthly. So we kind of changed that up. But we do have a primary full-time van driver. And he pretty much his responsibility is to pick seniors up in their homes, bring them to the senior center for a program. He might have to do a quick medical appointment, and then he's available to then take the seniors home, and then 2 days a week he then picks up another round of people to bring them down to the grocery store. So those are programs we would never want to have go away because they're so needed. So possibly another van driver, whether it be part-time or a volunteer or a tax work-off person, could play a more active role in other ways of transporting seniors to the center. And I think that's going to be driven by the kind of programming you decide to have. I mean, let's face it, right now we have a very active bridge playing group, but I don't play bridge. You know, it wasn't a card game that we were taught. So as those seniors start to fade, we're going to have to enter into the mix. Like we do have a Friday card or a Friday group of game playing, and left, right, center. I don't know if you've ever played that. Tell me you haven't ever played that. It's a simple game. Everybody has like 3, you can use nickels or quarters or whatever, and so you're passing a dice back and forth, and if you roll a certain thing, you got to put your 2 quarters in, and it just creates a tremendous amount of laughter. So I'm seeing more of that kind of thing, in addition to bringing seniors in for the all-important social engagement, so that they're not staying in their homes and isolated. So.
Yeah.
The other thing is that we've heard about the parking situation at Town Hall. So I would think that by moving, and we're so excited that the town has committed to, creating a new senior center in a different spot, there'll be more than enough parking for everybody.
Sure. My only concern is that, we've so been here, and
right.
now it's
And
going to be a
change is hard, and change is hard across the board.
I heard
always.
about the sidewalks, and people be walking the sidewalks, like, that's a little of a hike.
I have a question. You mentioned that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has cut the formula
They
grant.
did that for this fiscal
For
year.
this fiscal year.
Yes,
So do you
the fiscal year that we're in right now.
Okay, do you expect that to be a problem next year as
No.
well? Another
No,
cut?
if,
or
I don't know if you've
back up
heard
to level funding?
Governor Baker's State of the State address. He definitely said he would stand behind bringing that formula grant
back
right
up to where it was?
and
Oh,
higher,
wonderful.
preferably
Okay.
higher. So, yeah.
And where did that most impact you during this fiscal year?
That formula grant actually supports part-time employees. So
Okay.
of the 5 full-time employees that we have 2 part-time receptionists, we have an office assistant, and we also have someone who's in the kitchen overseeing the operations of the kitchen, and then it also supports our part-time friendly visitor coordinator.
Okay, so that's the people down on your other funding.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes.
That's what I thought
Yes.
the connection was. All right.
Yeah.
So,
But we rely heavily on their support and the formula grant.
Right. And the donations
And
as well.
donations, to make it all kind of work.
Have you ever had struggled to, for example, Meals on Wheels, you didn't have enough, or support when you just, oh my goodness, we didn't see this coming at all during the past year?
Meals on Wheels comes through Elder Services of Merrimack Valley.
Okay.
And those meals are created at the Voc Tech, but they are created through a catering company. which is a for-profit company.
I guess that was an
Just
example of.
Has there been any financial surprises in this last year?
Right, where
Oh,
you
with the
struggled.
Meals
like-
on Wheels?
No, any
In
program,
general.
any
Oh, that's
program.
just an
Any
example. I'm
program,
sorry,
my
I
bad.
could be very little. I'm trying to think.
I would say the year before, when they removed, there was a telephone line, there was a meal line that was in
Yes.
there. And did they remove a staff person as well?
Yes,
From, okay.
they did.
But that was,
Yeah.
Reinstated
more-
this past year?
no, but that was
No,
in 2016. They
yeah.
restructured how they,
Or
how
what
the
kind
meals
of
come in.
support they would give to us. So they
Right.
no longer support a telephone line. They took away a stipend that they used to give us for,
Mm-hmm.
coffee and that kind of thing. But not anything that's been a surprise to us this year, so.
And that was made up through the formula grant as well. So there wasn't any missed opportunities. As a matter of fact, what the senior center has been doing, particularly on Veterans Day, is they've been getting volunteers to deliver the meals on Veterans Day because it's a holiday for elder services, and so they don't provide meals on that or any other holiday. So when people do get meals on holidays, it's due to the senior center stepping up and recognizing that there's a gap and filling in the gap.
Wow, especially on Veterans Day.
And if you look at the number.
You're not getting fed today, guys, because it's a holiday.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Well, if you look at the number, this past Veterans Day, we sent out 116 meals. That's significant.
That's great.
Usually the daily list is anywhere from 70 to 85, but we also accommodated some veterans' families and did trays of like a family-style meal too, in addition to individuals. So, yeah.
So I just have a question about kind of programming and your vision going forward, especially as you've talked about generations change and the needs of basically who is your client, right, changes. So are you utilizing, I know you have a board, but utilizing any larger outside organizations to help you with that process and to figure out kind of what the best practices in programming are?
I would say the only way that we've kind of connected with some area businesses has been through our Friends Board, and that is to reach out to them and to see whether or not that they could sponsor some type of fundraising for us.
What about like larger organizations like the International Council on Active Aging or like any of those kind of?
Yeah, well, we're members of the Massachusetts Council on Aging and the National Council on Aging, so we're constantly getting fed what's happening across the country as well as within our state. One of the things that we've embraced, we've had a early stage Alzheimer's support group since 2009, I believe it was. It could have been even earlier than that. And the hot topic with the Alzheimer's Association as well as with Massachusetts Council on Aging is developing a dementia-friendly Massachusetts. And so that's a program that's being embraced throughout the state. And the
But those are volunteer champions or trainers, as you write here?
Yes. In other words, we sent a staff person. Well, there's a couple of different programs out there. We went towards the sides of creating Dementia Friends. And so that is a program that's done through the Jewish Family and Children's Services. And so they came out, did a training, and trained a trainer. And then that trainer, who happens to be our program coordinator, has returned and has done several workshops to train in-house volunteers, and then she has expanded it to other staff employees within the town. I know she plans to do a program at the library, at DPW. I mean, we're trying to hit all of those of us that work for the town, but then we're going to try to domino it out to the businesses. So do a program with Stop and Shop, do a program with Market Basket. Amici's on
Yes, Waverly.
Waverly, thank you, has already, they saw Leah with her button, and they asked about it, and he said, I think that's something that myself as an owner and my employees could really benefit from. So
That's awesome.
That's one of the things that I guess is, got our energies up, and we're really excited about that.
And the respite program.
Yes. So, God, Kathy, and then of course as I'm get more excited than I get more elevated. Well, you can tell I like what I do. So one of the things as an outreach manager, not only have I seen the need for support groups for those with a diagnosis as well as their care partner, is the phone calls that come through that say, I just need some help. I just need some help. And that help can't always come in the form of a private pay company. So we're not quite at a point where we're looking to do an all-out daycare. The book is like this thick as to what you would have to do. So we kind of came up with a quasi version of that, and we're calling it a respite care program. So I don't know if it
Pilot program.
Yeah, I don't know if it got in the packet, did it?
Yeah, it did.
It did.
There's a comment about it, yeah.
Yeah, so this pilot program would be that 2 days a week, we would offer to that care partner to bring their loved one to a safe place within the senior center. And so they would arrive with their partner, get them settled, and then there would be programming for them as well as 2 meals, a light kind of continental style breakfast, and then we would serve them lunch. So the window would be from 9 to 2, and that would give that care partner either time to go run errands, to go to a hair appointment, any of those things that they're feeling stressed about that they might even be neglecting themselves. And one of the things that I've learned along the way, and I think you're taught that as a parent, is you got to take care of yourself in order for you to take care of your child. And so that's very true of a care partner. They need to recognize that they need a break in order to then, reinforce their ability to be with their partner again. So it could be anything with a diagnosis of Parkinson's. It could be a diagnosis with any of the dementias. Someone who's had a stroke. Things along that nature. It's not specific to Alzheimer's or, just any type of cognitive or even physical disability of sorts. So we're kind of excited about that. And
I don't need to, it's not on our document for 2019, which it's so admirable. I just had to learn about it.
It's in the cover letter of the budget book,
town
like,
manager.
from the town
Okay,
manager.
that's
I'm
fine.
sorry, it's, yep. mhm.
No, it's
Right.
great.
And so the language that got used on the goals, he did. It was put down as daycare, but it's really not daycare. It's respite
I
care.
understand
So,
respite.
Yes.
just so that you're clear
Yep,
on that.
absolutely.
Okay. So I don't know if that covers our champions. I'm hoping, because of the inquiries with the Alzheimer's support group, I have a goal in here that I want to offer a second one. Because you try to keep the support group at a small number, just so that everybody has the opportunity to share and no one's feeling overwhelmed. I'm looking to at least increase that by one more support group of at a minimum 5 or 6 couples, if you will. Tonight I had my support group for the first time for this semester, and they say this is not enough. An hour and 15 minutes is not enough. We need this again. We want to come twice a month. So it's such a rewarding thing, but at the same time, we have to balance that with, all the other things that we do. So, but, and then the only other thing I want to champion is our friendly visitor program. She really has, and it's largely because of who she is and the kind of demeanor that she has really made strides with the 6 housings within the town. And by going out and doing fun activities like a root beer float activity, and then we kind of balance it with something a little bit more serious, an education program. We did fire and safety. We worked with the fire department, Matt Davis, to come in and do a PowerPoint presentation on how to be safe within your home. Then we shifted to doing hand massages. And at different housing communities, it brings out numbers or it doesn't bring out numbers. But the fact that they're seeing us, they're visually seeing us, and they're visually seeing that we are really trying to make a connection with them.
When you say housing facilities, can you just give me an example of one, because I'm not familiar?
Okay, so we have Fool's Terrace,
Okay.
which is up just before China Blossom. Then we have Fountain Drive.
Are
That's
these 55 and up communities?
no,
or-
no. These are senior housing. Senior
Okay,
and
that's good.
dis-
That's why I
yeah,
didn't know. Okay.
And so there's 6 within the town.
Okay. Thank
There's
you.
one on Waverly too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Green Street, and Waverly.
They're sort of managed through the Housing Authority.
Yeah.
Those-
Got it. Thanks.
But it hasn't. The history has been that it hasn't always been the best of relationships, but because of a change of guard in the housing authority and with us, really, we really wanted to grow that. So right now we're doing a grab and go bag program, which is basically telling seniors in a case of an emergency, what do you really need to have readily accessible, and what do you need to do? So the North Andover Merchants Association donated printed bags and their little string packs, and I really don't think a string pack's going to hold all that you're going to need, but so I'm suggesting like a knapsack or a backpack, but it's just it's kind of like a tickle, to let them know that yes, this is what you need to prepare for, and then of course we give them ice cream afterwards. So we're just trying to figure out, how to mix in. Yeah,
I know. Why don't we get ice cream?
I just don't want them to think that we're coming in and creating a classroom setting and that they're at school. We want to say, yes, this education and this information is important, but you guys are important too, so.
Public health nurse?
Oh, yes. Yes, the addition of Caroline to the Public Health Department. Her office is down on the same floor as ours. She has agreed, with no issues whatsoever, to take over our blood pressure clinic that was seeing declining numbers, and so we had it every week for many, many years, and we just kept seeing the numbers go down, and I think people have cuffs on their own at home, or they're seeing their primary on a more regular basis, but she is willing to have office hours. So she does that in our side of the building 2 days a week. But she also has been instrumental to me with the help of some difficult situations that even though I'm an outreach manager, I'm not licensed in any way, and I don't have that nursing background. And so she kind of has offset some of that for me. And I think a lot of times a senior in a distressed situation is a little bit more comfortable knowing that there's an RN that they're speaking to versus just an outreach.
What has impressed me, by the way, with what you just said, and Eric before you, is the working together across departments. There's not
Yes.
any walls or barriers. It's really a nice thing to hear. So.
And I have to say that we're doing the same with veterans.
Yes.
We have a very good relationship with veterans, so now it's kind of like, do you have this person in your system? Or I'll go up to them and say, do you have this person in your system? And, how can we work together to get them some services and so forth? So it's been a great addition.
That's good. Any other questions? Joe, is there anything you'd like to add, about what you see or do? You can come up front.
I would think the only thing I could add is that it would be great if we could have more community involvement with the senior center. It's easy to support our young people, the youth center, and I firmly believe in that. I think it's great. I think it's necessary because the kids are our future. But the senior population in town is growing. I mean, we are an older town, and it would be great to see more community involvement, more community support. It's pretty difficult when you go to our Friends meetings, which is our the support function to the senior center. Hopefully brings in extra funds, fundraisers and things like that. You just don't see it. Usually it's a matter of 3 or 4 people at these meetings. We've encouraged as best we can, businesses to come and watch us do our thing, help us, do a fundraiser of some sort. And it's pretty hard to get that enthusiasm out of people, and we're struggling a little bit. It's gotten a little bit better. We've been doing some things lately, and a couple of banks have have shown an interest to help us. One actually contacted Carla and said, hey, what can we do for you? So we want their money, and we're gonna go for it. We do
Don't
have a
think
big
they're open to
fundraiser.
defaults, though.
Yeah, we do have a big fundraiser set up for, we tried to do it this year, couldn't quite pull it off, but it's gonna be next year in May of 2019. Hopefully, it's gonna be something that the community will rally around. Just to let you know, we're gonna bring in the Glenn Miller Orchestra to North Andover.
I love it.
And, you know, we're hoping we can get about 500 people. I've already requested a spot at the high school or the middle school. But we've signed a contract with the band, so we're on the hook. So fundraising will be the next big thing for us to do. And hopefully we've taken a step in that direction.
I've made a note of it.
Do you think that the new building, in coming up with the design, there could be a way to try to make it also a draw that would just bring more people in to interact with the senior community
I would
and be
think
aware
so.
of it?
I
I
would
think
think
that that's
so.
something you've
I
really
would
got to
think so. I
focus
mean,
on in the
yeah,
design.
right now, our building, as I understand it, is kind of an add-on.
I
There's
know,
no
it's-
real,
No flow.
It's an
no flow,
afterthought,
and
yeah.
we know that current senior centers, you know, all of that is considered. So
Yeah.
we're just looking
Yeah.
forward to not having to break rooms up and down constantly.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Have
know.
a common room, have more
Yeah.
facilities for that
I
kind
think
of
a
stuff.
lot of people would probably enjoy donating their time if they knew how. How can the general public, is there a list of volunteer opportunities? Several that you rattled off tonight.
Yes, we
sound
do.
like-
I mean, I'll have somebody just walk in the door and
But
say.
how would, say, if I want to go home and figure out how I should volunteer with the senior center, where would I?
What you would probably do is resource the senior center or a website, you know.
That's
That's what I mean, is there a list somewhere?
Yeah.
Is there a
Well,
volunteer section
So,
on the website?
right now, the two volunteer opportunities that we sort of initiate or push is to be a medical driver. And that's through the NEAT program, which is Northern Essex Elder Transportation. And they get a small stipend for the mileage.
How do people find out about that?
That gets advertised in our quarterly newsletter. I mean, technically, they also run under the formula grant. So, I mean, I would say it's up to them to do the majority of that advertisement, but we have always partnered with them.
But we could probably look at doing a better job of
Yeah.
getting the word out in terms of these are examples of the type of volunteer
Yeah,
opportunities.
like how do you become a
Yeah.
dementia friend? I mean, is that a,
Yeah.
can
I have it up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you type in senior, you don't come to anything.
It might be
Uh,
under elder services.
Yeah.
People don't,
but- Oh,
They-
I see what you're saying,
Yeah, search-wise, you think senior, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So if I did just senior,
Or just
and that's
volunteer.
what Chuck is asking. People, we want them to know this is a town
Town-
It's easier.
resource,
Mhm.
and this is what you get.
Also,
which
just
is
not
great.
even, so I think to your point, like, there are people that have skill sets that could be helpful to seniors. So even
Right.
Well,
to
there's the
say, hey, we're
driving, the
seeking,
reading,
like,
all that, yeah.
like if someone comes to you and says, you know, I really wish I could learn how to, like, manage my finances better, well, that would be a great example of someone maybe from this community that
Correct.
could come and teach a class
Correct.
for free. Or, you know, someone's training to be a yoga instructor in town and they would be happy to lead yoga
Exactly.
classes for no cost. Like, I just think opportunities like that would be cool too.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree
That's
with
a
you.
great-
I agree with you.
Do you have some kind of alignment with schools and the college here?
Not so much the college, the schools, yes. We've always have had a relationship with the schools, whether it be in a social setting or whether we do a kind of like give back situation where we have knitters in the senior center, and I know it's becoming a lost art, but then a new art. But we gave out over, let's see, how many elementary schools in town? 5?
Yeah, and I think it was over 400 hats, right?
Well, we did it in two different segments. We give them to veterans as well as we give them to the schools. So initially, we started at
Volunteer opportunities right at the bottom, Jen.
Yes.
Uh,
No, I'm-
That's exactly what I
Yeah.
was trying to
Yeah.
get.
yeah.
Click on that, what happens?
Well, you're there. That's what I'm saying. That's how I got you.
No,
there.
down
No, down the bottom there, it says
down.
volunteer opportunities.
Right there. Everything
So,
goes to
like,
the Google
schools
Drive.
schools have different clubs.
Makes-
I mean, I'm not aware of any social work club, if they have, where in these high school kids can go and visit these senior centers, and it's more of respect more than money and other things that and company that these elderly people require. And when these kids can go and sit with them, spend some time, do some nail polish, some makeup, all these little things.
What I found, because I was the program manager for coordinator, for 4 years, is that the timing of schools and the timing of the senior center don't work. Meaning the seniors, especially at this time of year, 3 o'clock, bye-bye. They're going home. And that's when the kids are available, is to come in after school. So we fortunately have had relationships with Atkinson, where they're willing to take their fourth graders, and it's such a tradition that the fourth graders actually can't wait for that pizza day to come in. And that's when they sit and talk with the seniors, and we, break them up into small groups, so there's like maybe 5 or 6 kids sitting around with just 2 seniors.
What a great thing.
Yeah, it is. It's great. And Stachy's has traditionally, donated the pizza. And so what we really do is provide the cookies or the beverage. And the kids that might have a food allergy or whatever, as long as they have permission to bring their own lunch, then, it's a win-win. And then the 5th graders, it's their big graduation, before they head off to the middle school to come and do that. And I would love to see more of the elementary schools participating, but the reason Atkinson does is because they walk.
Right.
So I would think Kittredge could walk, and Thompson could walk. I'm sorry, I kept saying Atkinson. I meant Thompson. And then I'm thinking of the 2 up there. So it's just a matter of, I think, making that connection. We work with some teachers who have been within the system for a long time, so, and they worked for Greg Gilligan too. So, Greg has been a little instrumental in making sure that
So what Sasha said, taking it forward, if a senior wants a certain kind of help, I want this.
Okay.
If we have a message board or something on the website,
It's right
then the
there,
volunteers, so the volunteers can also post there and say, I can help you do this, or.
You can go ahead.
Hold on a second. Again, suggestions. We've got to focus tonight, and we have other ones.
I'm asking if there is something.
Candidly, I like the idea of volunteerism, but also too, I've noticed that, in the St. Michael's Parish, which I'm familiar with, volunteerism isn't I don't go and volunteer. I'm actually asked, and I'm honored to volunteer, and then I do. And so just that kind of program might be more. Pardon me?
Voluntold.
Yeah, but I'm with you there. So anyways, any other questions for?
Yeah, I would like to offer something.
Sure.
I have a friend who teaches the accounting and tax at Merrimack College.
Okay.
If you would get a hold of me later, he should have students volunteer to come do tax preparation.
Okay,
for
we
seniors.
do right now work with AARP.
Okay, do they have that already?
Yes, we
Okay.
have that right now, happening right now. We have 2 volunteers through AARP.
Okay.
And just a quick comment, we love volunteers, but we do have a formal process where we do criminal history background checks, and we also want to be very careful about the type of people that we introduce to our seniors. We don't want anything that's inappropriate or unsafe to happen to the senior. So there's a fine balance in terms of what type of volunteers. For example, we would, unless they're coming through the friendly visitor program, we would not necessarily be comfortable sending somebody into a senior's home that way. So
Yeah, what I was talking about is an
process,
IRS-run program where college
Yeah.
students who are accounting
Right.
majors in their senior year
Well,
volunteer to do
it's
taxes.
certainly something to look at going
Yeah.
down the road, because those appointments get gobbled up.
Right.
And if we have a snow day, or, they're only there on a Monday, so, it could be an area where, as long as we can find the space for that to happen within the senior center, because they need access to a computer.
I think there's 500 accounting majors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
wonderful.
that's great. I
That's
appreciate
wonderful.
that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
That kind of relationship, I said, I was asking college.
I would
kids.
love an in with Merrimack,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
okay, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank
Joe,
you.
Carla, Kathy, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I see that.
There's no, right on the whole, you know, I got to it, I found it.
Oh, yeah.
Are you coming to visit us?
Oh, there's the button. No, thank you very much. Again, Carla, Joe, thank you again. Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, I heard. Gotta love it. So, we can probably leave here in about 15 minutes. We have started the draft of the FinCom letter. There's been some input, and I'd like to get feedback from those who haven't done anything. I'm still going to put the structure of the whole thing together with your inputs, but what do you need to get to the next level of input if you haven't? We haven't done
Well,
it.
first I need to know if your section is in this master letter, because everybody almost, I mean, some of you are making improvements separately, but the majority of us are making them in this master
I
letter.
noticed that. I
Okay,
noticed that.
so are yours not?
I haven't done, no.
Okay,
no.
so that's one, because I'd like to read them before well, I won't be here at the next meeting, but.
No, you won't be, but we absolutely will need, again, another push to get this thing more polished.
Yeah.
So I thought last meeting, we agreed that the Sunday night before our Monday meeting, so this Sunday, everyone would have their final version, as they see it, of their section in the Google Doc. And then at that point, that gives everyone 24 hours to print it out, look it over themselves, come to the meeting having read the document. Then that's when we all discuss, if we have any specific changes. And then you guys, I think we should talk about it as a group if we want someone to polish it together in the group format or separately.
So what I'll
right?
probably do, with your permission, but I would, not after being through this productively for 5 of the 6 years, the first year wasn't a letter. And Karen, I know that. But what I like to do is, using the similar format, similar structure that we've polished over the last few years, let me take a stab at it. And then get your feedback. And everyone's feedback is so critically important. But I just want to make sure from this meeting, what are you missing on school? What are you missing?
I already requested, so what we're missing is a confirmation for school, just on the teacher ratio, student-teacher ratio.
Yeah.
I asked,
Last
because
fall.
I do have the reports, the updated, but I'm not comfortable relying on these, because we weren't actually given them. I pulled them off of the internet.
Okay.
Part is that building there.
What?
Yeah.
In here.
I have another question about this Google Doc. Can we take all the stuff out? Like all those words and the stuff from last year, I get really confused about what's this year and what's last year.
Jen, can you actually do that? I mean, people can look at last year's side
Well,
by
what did
side with,
Okay, so I would rather each person do their own section, because they know what's last year versus this year. Because some people have used it.
I did today, I did part of the section, my
Okay.
section.
Your
Yeah,
section.
you did part, and you include,
And did you delete out the old wording then?
Yes, I did.
Perfect.
Can't you show it in markup mode?
Yeah, but
let's get it out now.
Oh, okay.
That's what we're saying is
Okay.
let's.
She did part, and then I compressed part, and I dropped, what I would like everyone to know is I dropped the town has so many hundreds of employees,
Yeah.
and this is the number of them, I took that out.
okay?
And then then we don't have to have the data, come in for that, but it's only, just a few sentences long or paragraphs long, and it just focuses on, the collective bargaining, business.
Good,
And I even mentioned OPEB in it,
good.
in the collective bargaining.
That's a good segue. I read the material that was sent to me on OPEB, from the OPEB committee, but I have a question for the two of you. What I sort of had in mind, in addition to that great paragraph, was why should I be concerned as a citizen? Answer the question. Why should I be concerned as a citizen about OPEB? And that wasn't really, there's an action being taken, and that's what that, your words are all about. But why do I care about OPEB?
We're not
And,
done, though. Is that what you're commenting on, is the OPED section?
yeah,
We're not done. We're not
okay.
against tomorrow night.
That's a good point, though, that the,
He wasn't at the last meeting,
You
so
know-
let me speak and then you can chime in.
okay.
His initial draft
Try to
was
stop.
very about why, like, we really need to care and this is what we need to, and our redraft with Andrew with us last week was taking it down to saying we are going to be deliberate and everything, so I think what's going to happen tomorrow night is we're going to blend his draft and the rest of the group's draft to make it a little bit more
let me tell you, the material that you sent out
loud.
was very, very critical, important, and I don't want to beat a drum to death, but I don't think we've really, maybe even graphically, showed perhaps a scenario, a very real scenario of shrinking operating budget in order to cover OPEB.
Right.
That's what the message that I'm thinking needs to be made, because that's the danger of OPEB. And
I don't think the OPEB committee is prepared to make that, so the question will be, do you want this part of the letter to be what the OPEB committee has come up with, or
Well,
what we have chucked in?
okay, well, it can be a combination of both, because what I read from the OPEB that you sent out was, here are the actions that we're taking to address it. I like that, but I also need to educate, and that part I didn't see in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you said it's not done, so I
And
like,
that's where I'm hoping his
And
part
that's
comes
what
back
exactly
in.
our role is, to critically see and then present.
yes,
Yes.
and a graph. Me, that's one thing I might do, is put a graph in there, color picture in
Well,
Yeah,
there.
he
was
did
that
that.
graph
He's
not
got more
on
than
page
one.
one?
Okay,
Was that graph not on page one?
No, we didn't understand it, so we have to reconvene as the OPEB committee. That was, you know, your first graph, you did a couple, but that first graph,
Yeah.
we didn't understand it.
Hmm.
so
We're just not.
I will have something like that, I think, in the document. Thomas, I think, you're still back in the old Capitol, the CI,
It's all done.
okay,
Capital is done.
done? I know I'm working with Liz on the reserves, I think she's got
Yeah,
some good
we're just-
input
yeah.
from,
The only
Liz.
thing
We're
I
just
just
about
saw.
done, just need to
you-
finalize the numbers.
You call the kindergarten early childhood center, so I want to be then consistent. So I call this in my section the kindergarten.
They
so.
officially renamed
ECC?
it the
Yeah.
Annie L. Bradstreet
Bradstreet.
Early Childhood
Oh,
Center.
they just named it.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
that helps,
Right.
that's
Yeah,
solid.
we-
So-
yeah.
Okay,
So
I even wrote in a note, like, please confirm this is
ECC.
correct.
Yeah, it's the
But
Annie
so
L.
there,
Bradstreet.
and we can maybe do like a footnote so people know that the old ECC is now with the kindergarten building. The ECC.
Be a little asterisk
Yeah.
there.
I actually put it in the brackets when I drafted that.
So you want me to copy that down to your section? The
It just,
Annie? It
that
just-
was my, I just saw that.
Just so it's
And
It just
really, when you
happened.
go through the book,
You're fine.
Yeah, yeah, it's no big deal.
it jumps
just named
back
it.
and forth between kindergarten and then early childhood, and I think there's a third term, and I think I jumped also back and forth.
Yeah, so we'll just pick one either way, it doesn't matter to me, we'll
So,
just pick
yeah.
the same one.
Okay, I'll move down and add it right now. I just realized one thing too, on the summary part, there's comments about the school. We didn't, I didn't touch those.
No. What
That's
I'm
your
doing-
part,
yeah.
right? Okay.
The executive summary is a
page.
compilation, a short compilation of your sections. And so keywords will be taken out of your sections and put into that summary, the executive summary, and then in conclusion. And,
That's what I did.
okay,
And
so,
that's-
Right, but that
But
yellow
isn't that-
needs to be deleted now, right?
Well, isn't that what we're all, like, that is your responsibility to put together, but
Yes.
that we're all really, but that's what we're all really
You're feeding me.
focused on next meeting to go through, because that's what people are gonna read, isn't that the whole point of
yes.
why we created this last year?
so that,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
So if anything, I'll probably have a shell of my own executive summary ready to fill in the blanks if it's not already been done by the time Sunday comes around. Hopefully Sunday will be the final draft for you guys.
everyone, yeah, we should make a point that everyone, if we can all agree,
We're
because
holding
I
up
think
So,
ten.
most
Yeah.
people are already almost
Done.
done.
Yeah.
Like, Thomas is officially done, we're pretty, we need to wordsmith and do some things, but we're close,
So Sunday the 25th, drop dead,
done.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm good
and
with that.
Karen, this yellow, can
That
I
gives you
remove all
time.
this? It says.
sorry?
That gives you time to.
No,
Yeah.
well,
On
that's
our
what I
own,
Did you wanna
we have
keep
done,
it?
But don't you
Yeah,
think we
that's
have to
what I
now
edited.
collectively
I
just
couldn't
go
get
over
the
it
yellow to
like
go over.
last
No, don't
year
worry.
and then
I
say,
got
That's
it.
what we're gonna do the Monday after,
Yeah, so I think right now on our.
You just
own
resolve that
record,
little, it was just,
There's
Kind
pieces of
of,
it.
yeah, there's a little bit of information here and then.
So,
learning
Divya
Google.
and all,
Thank you.
Thomas, you're done.
I just changed it.
Chuck and Jen are working on the OPED. When you think you're done, look it over again.
Karen, we don't have that information with specific, so many employees' salary.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll check it out.
Yeah, so.
yeah, it's gone.
Gone.
Good.
And the, on the reserves, I'm going to simply, the part where we talked about OPEB last year, I'm going to say this committee pointed out last year that OPEB was a concern, and therefore you will see an expanded section on OPEB in this letter, and I'll refer to whatever that
It really
section ends
depends
up
on.
being. So I can say, last year, we said this was a big deal, this
Carried
year,
it forward, like.
this is what we've
acknowledged
done
it.
about it, so.
I would also say, we, and then a committee was formed and then.
Right, well, right.
So, but my big picture here, the two takeaways on this letter are the following. One is the OPEB. Well, besides the fact that we're doing well as a town still, there's no doubt on an annual operating basis, we're fine. But the biggest takeaway here is strategic. Do we, on the OPEB and on the schools. So I want people to take away, just like they did last year, the strategic vision of, these people aren't just blessing the year for next year. They're thinking 4, 5, 10 years out, 20 years out. And that's where I want the emphasis, a key emphasis on this letter to be. So that people go, yeah, maybe we should have a 5-year financial forecast for our school. So
We said that last year, too.
we'll put it big bold letters there.
I
Simon.
just because I looked over and I was like, oh, we did put that right.
So
last year.
there's also the little speech before the town meeting that can also be emphasized, and that's sort of where I'm going with this, the address to the town is school OPEB. So, and they can read all about it as well. Any other comments regarding the letter?
I mean, knock on wood, but I think we're
I think you guys have done
in
well.
good shape for the date.
Any new business?
It was worse, I
Um,
can tell you that.
In the matter of new business, I just want to remind everybody, when you communicate to the committee, be very careful not to communicate anything that could be perceived as deliberations of this body via email. We've had emails go out, and it always makes me nervous. If you're not sure, make sure when you send something out, blind CC the finance committee, so that it doesn't then become a
It's a great
back
idea.
and forth discussion, because if we have more than a quorum in an email discussion, we're potentially in violation of the public meeting
The
law.
open meeting law, yeah.
Yeah, so just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you very much. We do have minutes, thank you.
Yes.
What actually happens if we are in violation?
You can get, if someone reports.
Could be,
it, that's a
yeah,
subpoena.
get slapped.
Yeah. And we need to, we would need to put anything in that, into the public record. Those
The case
emails
could
would
be
have to go
made-
into the public
They
record.
have to go in the public work, but if we actually made,
Decision.
if someone could make an argument that while we were doing that emailing and had the quorum, if we actually made a decision, then whoever was aggrieved would try to undo that decision by saying that we did not have a properly called meeting. And,
Right.
it depends on, I don't see it
I didn't get
ever.
it, sorry, I'm very
I
sorry.
don't either, but you know what, we practice on the extreme.
Well, I would say
Yeah.
just be careful, just be safe.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly.
That's all I can say.
So minutes, I've read them. Angela did a bang-up job for everything that happened the last minute, so. Any comments or questions? Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the meeting minutes dated March 6th, 2018.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Karen? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. If there's nothing else, I so appreciate the members of this team. I appreciate the honesty, the independence, your volunteerism on this committee, and I'll make that a public record, so I'll make sure that's part of the notes, please. Thank you. All right, any other motion here?
I hereby move we adjourn.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.